He never spoke of the war, until she found a wedding ring buried in the saddle. The town appeared first as a shimmer, then as shapes against the flat horizon. Silas Cole had ridden toward it for 3 days, watching it grow from nothing into something that barely counted as more. Perdition Flats sat in the desert like a forgotten thing, wooden buildings leaning into each other for support against the endless wind. His horse, a gray mare named Dust, moved with the careful steps of an animal that knew water was scarce. Her hooves made soft sounds in the sand, a rhythm Silas had listened to for so many miles it had become part of his breathing. The leather of his saddle creaked. The sun pressed down. These were the only sounds in a world that seemed to have forgotten how to speak. The main street of Perdition Flats stretched before him, empty except for a dog sleeping in the shade of a broken wagon. The buildings were the color of sand and age. A saloon with no name, its sign long since blown away. A general store with boards nailed over one window. A church at the far end, its cross tilted like it was asking a question nobody wanted to answer. Silas stopped Dust in front of a water trough that held more dust than water. He dismounted slowly, his joints stiff from days of riding. At 43, his body had begun keeping count of every fall, every fight, every cold night spent under stars that didn't care about the men beneath them. His face carried the map of those years, lines cut deep by sun and wind, eyes the color of winter sky, a scar along his jaw that he no longer remembered getting. He led Dust to what water there was, watching her drink with careful sips. A curtain moved in the window of the general store. Someone watching. There was always someone watching in towns like this, towns that were dying but didn't quite know how to stop breathing. The weight of his saddlebags felt heavier than usual as he lifted them down. Inside, among the coffee and hardtack and ammunition, something else rested. Something wrapped in blue cloth that had once been the color of morning sky. He didn't think about it. He had trained himself not to think about it, the way a man trains himself not to touch a hot stove. "Mister!" The voice came from behind a rain barrel, small and fierce. Silas turned to see a girl, maybe 10 years old, maybe 12. Hunger had a way of making children ageless. Her hair hung in tangles the color of dry blood. Her dress had been mended so many times it was more thread than fabric. But her eyes, green as bottle glass, held something that hadn't been broken yet. "You got food?" she asked. Not begging, just asking, the way you'd ask about the weather. Silas studied her. No shoes, hands that shook just a little, the kind of thin that came from too many missed meals. "Maybe," he said. She stepped out from behind the barrel, and he saw she was holding a rock, not threatening him exactly, just letting him know she had it. "I can work for it. I can brush your horse. Carry things. Where are your people?" "Don't have people." She said it simple, like stating the color of the sky. "Just me." Silas had seen plenty of orphans in his travels. The West made them by the dozens. Fever, Indians, accidents, or just the slow death of hope. Most begged. Some stole. This one stood straight, offering work for food with a rock in her hand and pride in her spine. He turned back to his saddlebags, and that's when she moved. Quick as a desert lizard, she darted forward, her free hand diving into the open bag. Looking for food, probably. Finding something else. No, the word tore from Silas's throat, raw and sudden. He grabbed her wrist, not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to stop her. The blue cloth fell to the ground between them, unwrapping as it fell. A gold ring rolled out, catching the late afternoon sun, spinning in the dust before coming to rest against his boot. The girl went still, not scared still, but careful still, like an animal that suddenly realizes it's not alone. She looked from the ring to his face, and something in her expression shifted. "That's a woman's ring," she said quietly. Silas released her wrist. He bent down, picked up the ring with movements that seemed to come from far away. The blue cloth, he noticed, had a small tear now. One more thing broken. He wrapped the ring again, taking his time, making each fold precise. "I'm sorry," the girl said. And somehow, Silas knew she wasn't talking about trying to steal from him. He looked at her again, really looked, past the hunger and the dirt to something else. A recognition, maybe the way one lost thing recognizes another. "What's your name?" "Ruby." "Like the stone." She shrugged. "My mama liked pretty things." Silas put the wrapped ring back in his saddlebag, deeper this time. Then he pulled out a piece of hardtack and a strip of dried beef. He held them out to her. "For the apology," he said. She took the food, but didn't eat it right away. Instead, she looked at him with those bottle-green eyes that seemed older than her years. "You running from something, mister?" "We're all running from something." "Or to something," she said. "Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference." Silas didn't answer. He couldn't, because in the space between her words and his silence, he heard the wind picking up, bringing the smell of coming rain. And somewhere in that wind, he could almost hear a woman's voice, singing a song about rivers and time and things that couldn't be undone. The sun was falling toward the horizon, painting Perdition Flats in shades of gold and shadow. Soon it would be night, and he would need to decide whether to stay or keep riding. The desert waited, patient as always, ready to keep whatever secrets men brought to it. Ruby sat down in the dust and began to eat, slow and careful, making it last. And Silas stood there, holding his saddlebags, feeling the weight of what they carried. Not just the ring. Everything else. All the things the desert kept, until wind or time or a hungry child's hand brought them back into the light. Ruby followed him like a shadow made of dust and determination. Silas knew she was there. Her bare feet made soft sounds in the sand, and she stayed just far enough back to run if needed. He didn't tell her to leave. Maybe because the sound of another person walking felt less heavy than silence. Maybe because he recognized the careful distance she kept, the way hurt things circle each other before deciding to trust. The abandoned homestead sat a mile outside Perdition Flats, its walls still standing, but its soul long gone. Someone had built it with hope once. You could see it in the careful placement of stones for the foundation, the remains of fence that had tried to claim a piece of desert as home. Now it was just boards and memories. Another skeleton the desert was slowly taking back. Silas led dust to what was left of a lean-to shelter. The roof had holes, but it would keep the horse out of the wind. He unsaddled her with the careful movements of routine, aware of Ruby watching from beside a broken water pump. She had finished the food he'd given her, but hadn't asked for more. Pride was sometimes all a person had left to eat. "This your place?" she asked finally. "No, nobody's place now." She came closer, studying the homestead with eyes that had seen too many abandoned things. Someone loved it once. You can tell by the morning glory seeds. She pointed to the wooden posts near what had been the door. Dead vines wrapped around them, brown and brittle. "My mama said morning glories mean affection. Someone planted them to make it pretty." Silas looked at the dead vines and said nothing. He gathered scraps of wood, old fence posts, and boards pulled loose by wind. The sun was falling, painting everything the color of old blood. Soon it would be cold. The desert gave up its heat as quickly as it gave up its dead. Ruby helped without being asked, carrying smaller pieces of wood to the stone circle someone had built for fires long ago. She moved like she had done this before, like she knew the dance between staying useful and staying out of the way. When they had enough wood, Silas built the fire with practiced hands. Flame caught, pushed back the coming dark, made the walls of the homestead seem almost solid again. They sat on opposite sides of the fire, and for a while, neither spoke. The flames made shadows dance on the walls, and in those shadows, Silas could almost see the people who had lived here once. A man, a woman, maybe children, all gone now, leaving only morning glory seeds and stones arranged with care. "The ring," Ruby said quietly. "It was your wife's." It wasn't a question. Silas stared into the fire, watching sparks rise and die. "Yes." "Where is she?" The question sat between them like a stone. Silas had carried the answer for 3 years, and it hadn't gotten lighter. "Virginia," he said finally. "In the ground in Virginia." Ruby pulled her knees to her chest, making herself smaller. "The war. After the war." The words came slow, pulled from some deep place. "I was gone 4 years, fighting for things that seemed important then. When I came back, she was different. The war had come to our town. Soldiers. Both sides. They took what they wanted. The fire crackled. Somewhere in the desert, a coyote called to the rising moon. She tried to be strong, Silas continued, surprising himself by talking. Maybe it was the girl's quiet attention. Maybe it was the abandoned house, proof that other lives had ended too. But some things break a person in ways that don't show. She got sick that winter. Fever. Or maybe she just stopped wanting to fight. Ruby was quiet for a long moment. Then, my papa wanted to fight too. Never came back. Mama waited and waited. She got thin from waiting. Then the fever came to our town, and she didn't fight it either. She picked up a stick, drew patterns in the dust. I was 8. Been on my own since. That's hard living for a child. She shrugged. Hard living for anybody. But children are stronger than folks think. We bend instead of break. She looked at him across the fire. Most times, anyway. Silas pulled his saddlebag closer, felt the shape of the ring through the leather and cloth. I carry it because I can't put it down. Can't sell it. Can't throw it away. Can't bury it with her because I wasn't there when she died. My brother sent it to me with a letter. Said she wanted me to have it. Maybe she wanted you to remember the good times. Before the war changed everything. Maybe, but Silas knew better. You carried things like this ring, not to remember the good, but because the weight felt like penance. Every mile he traveled with it was a mile of apology for not being there, for choosing war over home, for coming back too late and too changed to save her. Ruby stood, walked around the fire to sit closer to him. Not touching, just closer. My mama had a ring too. Simple band, nothing fancy. When she was dying, she tried to give it to me. I wouldn't take it. Thought if I didn't take it, she couldn't go. She was quiet for a moment. She went anyway, and someone stole the ring before she was even cold. They sat in shared silence, watching the fire eat the wood, turning solid things to ash and smoke. The abandoned house creaked in the wind, and for a moment, Silas could almost hear other voices. The family who had planted morning glories, his wife singing in their kitchen, Ruby's mother calling her in for supper. All the ghosts that followed the living through the desert. You could stay here, Ruby said suddenly. Fix it up. Make it alive again. Silas shook his head. I'm not a staying kind of man anymore. Then where are you going? He didn't answer because he didn't know. West was all he had. West until the land ran out. Until the weight in his saddlebags felt lighter. Until he found a place where the ghosts couldn't follow. But looking at Ruby's face in the firelight, he wondered if such a place existed. The moon rose full and white, turning the desert silver. And in that light, the abandoned house looked almost whole again, like something that could be saved if anyone had the strength to try. But strength was like water in the desert, always running out, always needing to be found again. Ruby lay down near the fire, using her arm as a pillow, and Silas sat watching the flames die slow, thinking about morning glories and wedding rings and the different kinds of weight a person could carry. Some heavy as gold, some light as seeds, all of them holding the memory of what once grew in better soil. The sound of horses woke Silas before the sun. 3 riders, maybe 4, moving fast from the direction of town. He sat up slow, hand-finding his colt without thinking. Across the dead fire, Ruby slept curled tight, like a question mark, her face soft with the kind of peace that only comes when you're too tired to dream. Silas stood, bone stiff from sleeping on cold ground. The riders were close now. He could hear voices carrying on the still morning air, rough laughter, the kind that meant trouble for someone. He moved to where Dust stood, placed a calming hand on her neck, and waited. They came around the broken fence like they owned the world. 3 men, trail dirty and mean-looking. The one in front was big, with hands like ham hocks and a face that had lost too many fights to remember winning any. His eyes, small and dark as beetles, found Ruby immediately. "There's my property," he said, swinging down from his horse. "Been looking all night for you, girl." Ruby jerked awake, and the piece fell from her face like a mask. She scrambled to her feet, moving behind Silas without seeming to think about it. Just the instinct of something small seeking shelter. "Morning, gentlemen," Silas said, voice calm as winter water. "Something I can help you with?" The big man spit tobacco juice near Silas's boots. Nothing that concerns you, drifter. The girl belongs to me. Bought her fair and square from the orphan house in Tucson. Got the papers right here. He patted his vest pocket, but didn't reach for any papers. I don't belong to nobody, Ruby said, her voice shaking but fierce. You're a liar, Harlan Morse. You never bought nothing. You just took me when nobody was looking. Morse's face darkened. You watch your tongue, girl, or I'll watch it for you. He took a step forward. Been nothing but trouble since I took you in. Running off, filling folks' heads with lies. But that ends today. Silas shifted slightly, putting himself more firmly between Morse and Ruby. Seems the young lady doesn't want to go with you. Seems like that's not your business. Morse's hand dropped to his gun belt. His two companions spread out, trying to flank Silas. You some kind of kin to her? No. Then step aside and let me collect what's mine. The morning sun crept over the horizon, painting everything gold and red. In that light, Silas could see the bruises on Ruby's arms, old ones, yellow and green like sick leaves. He could see the way she held herself, ready to run but knowing there was nowhere to go. And in that moment, he saw another face, his wife's, the last time he'd seen her before leaving for war. The same look, trapped between bad choices and worse ones. Can't do that, Silas said quietly. Morse laughed, ugly and short. You want to die for some orphan trash? That's a fool's game, mister. Maybe. Silas kept his voice level, but his hand was steady near his gun. Been called a fool before, but I'm thinking you're going to ride on out of here without the girl. I'm thinking you're going to forget you ever saw her. 3 against 1, old man. You ain't that fast. Fast enough for you. Silas met Morse's beetle eyes. Your friends there, they're hired help. They'll fight for money, but they won't die for it. You, though, you're different. You're the kind that likes hurting things smaller than you. Seen plenty like you in the war. Know how you think. The sun climbed higher, and the shadows began to shrink. One of Morse's men shifted nervous in his saddle. The other licked his lips, eyes darting between Morse and Silas. You killed men? Morse asked, trying to sound tough, but curious despite himself. More than I can count. More than I want to remember. Silas let the words settle like dust. But that was war. This is different. This is about a child who deserves better than whatever you've got planned. So I'll ask nice one more time. Right on. For a long moment, nobody moved. The desert held its breath. A hawk circled overhead, waiting to see what would die and become breakfast. Ruby's hand found the back of Silas's shirt, gripping the fabric tight. Then Morse's companion on the left, a thin man with nervous eyes, spoke up. Harlan, maybe we should shut up. Morse's hand twitched toward his gun, then stopped. Something in Silas's eyes, maybe, or maybe just the math of it. 3 men who wanted to live against one who didn't seem to care. This ain't over, drifter. That girl owes me for room and board. For teaching and raising. You can't just— How much? Silas asked. Morse blinked. What? How much does she owe you? Put a price on it. The big man's eyes went crafty. $50. Gold. It was robbery, and everyone knew it. $50 could buy a horse, a saddle, and enough supplies to last a month. But Silas reached into his saddlebag, felt past the wrapped ring to the leather pouch beneath. He counted out the coins, each one catching the morning light. His traveling money. His safety. He tossed the pouch to Morse, who caught it with greedy hands. There's 60. The extra 10 is for you to forget her name. Morse weighed the pouch, bit one of the coins, then smiled, showing yellow teeth. Pleasure doing business. He swung back onto his horse, but paused to look down at Ruby. You got lucky, girl. Next time you won't. They rode off, dust rising behind them like smoke. Silas watched until there were specks, then nothing. His hand was steady, but inside something shook loose. The weight in his saddlebags felt different now. Lighter where the gold had been. Heavier where the ring remained. Ruby's arms wrapped around him from behind, quick and fierce, then let go just as fast. Why? She whispered. That was all your money. Why would you? Because some things can't be fixed, Silas said, still watching the empty horizon. But maybe some things can be stopped from breaking. The sun was full up now, warming the cold ground, waking the lizards and snakes. And in that new light, The abandoned homestead looked different. Not fixed, not healed, but possible. Like maybe broken things could still give shelter if you were willing to try. Like maybe a man who couldn't save his past could still do something about someone else's future. They came back at sunset, just like Silas knew they would. Men like Harlan Morse didn't let go easy, especially when they'd been made to look weak. This time they came quiet, leaving their horses back a ways, creeping through the purple shadows like coyotes circling something wounded. Silas sat on the broken porch of the homestead, cleaning his colt with careful hands. Ruby was inside, trying to make something like supper from the supplies in his saddlebags. He could hear her humming, some tune her mother must have taught her, soft and sweet and full of hope that had no business in a place like this. "Ruby," he called quiet. "Get low and stay there." The humming stopped. He heard her move, quick and quiet like he'd told her. Smart girl. She'd learned to read danger in the air like weather. Morse stepped out from behind the old well, gun already drawn. His 2 men flanked him, spreading wide. The setting sun at their backs made them look like shadows given shape, dark things against the dying light. "Changed my mind about our deal," Morse said. His voice carried that mean edge that comes when a man's decided to do wrong and wants to feel right about it. $60 don't cover what that girl cost me. Figure I'll take it all. Your horse, your gear, and the girl. You can walk out of here with your life if you're smart." Silas set down his cleaning rag, slow and easy. "We both know that's not true. You're not the kind to leave witnesses." "Maybe not." Morse smiled, and it was an ugly thing. "Guess we'll find out." The moment stretched thin as wire. Somewhere a hawk screamed. The wind picked up, stirring dust devils in the yard. And in that space between breathing and not breathing, Silas felt something shift inside him. All the weight he'd carried, the war, his wife, the ring in his saddlebag, it didn't disappear. But it moved aside, making room for something else. Something that mattered more than old grief. "One thing you should know," Silas said, standing slow, hands loose at his sides. "I've been dead inside for 3 years. Been looking for a reason to care if I see another sunrise. That girl in there, she's not much, but she's trying to live in a world that keeps trying to kill her. That's more than I've been doing." Touching story. Morse raised his gun. "Too bad nobody will hear it." The violence came fast as lightning. Silas drew and fired in one motion, muscle memory from 100 battles taking over. Morse's gun went off, but he was already falling, clutching his chest. The man on the left tried to aim, but Silas was moving, diving sideways, firing again. The third man, the nervous one from morning, threw down his gun and ran. When the smoke cleared, Morse lay in the dust, breathing wet and hard. His companion was down too, not moving. The desert had gone quiet again, like it was holding its breath to see what would happen next. Silas walked over to Morse, stood looking down at him. The big man's beetle eyes were wide now, scared. Blood spread across his shirt like spilled wine. "You?" Morse coughed, spitting red. "You're fast. Faster than you look." "Had good teachers," Silas said quietly. "War makes killers of farmers and shopkeepers. Makes them fast or makes them dead." Morse tried to laugh, but it came out wrong. "The girl, she ain't worth dying for." "Maybe not to you." Silas knelt beside him, not out of kindness, but because he'd learned to look men in the eyes when they went. "But that's the difference between us. You saw something to own. I see someone who deserves a chance." Morse's breathing got rougher, shorter. His hands scrabbled in the dust, found nothing. "I got nobody to remember." "That's on you," Silas said. But he stayed there until the breathing stopped, until the light went out of those beetle eyes. Then he stood, feeling older than his years, but somehow lighter too. Ruby crept out of the house, her face pale in the twilight. She looked at the bodies, then at Silas. "Are you hurt?" "No." He checked himself to be sure. His hands were steady. The shaking would come later, maybe, or maybe not. This felt different from the war killings. This had been about something more than ground or glory. "What do we do now?" Ruby asked. Silas looked around at the homestead, at the desert stretching out in all directions. He thought about his wife, about the ring in his saddlebag, about all the miles he'd traveled trying to outrun ghosts. Then he looked at Ruby, thin and fierce and alive despite everything. "We bury them," he said. "Then we fix this place up, make it livable. Her voice was careful, like she was afraid to hope. "You need a home. I need." He paused, searching for words. "I need to stop running. Maybe we can help each other." They worked through the night, digging graves in the hard ground. It was ugly work, necessary work, the kind that marked the end of one thing and the beginning of another. When they were done, Silas went to his saddlebags and pulled out the wrapped ring. He stood there in the moonlight, holding it, feeling its weight. Then he walked to where they'd buried the morning glory seeds and dug a small hole with his hands. He unwrapped the ring one last time, looked at it shining in the pale light. "This belonged to someone I loved," he said, knowing Ruby was watching. "Someone I failed. I've been carrying it like a stone, like punishment. But maybe it's time to plan instead. Let something grow from it." He placed the ring in the hole, covered it with earth. Not throwing it away, not selling it. Planting it like seeds in ground that might grow something new. Ruby came to stand beside him. "Will you tell me about her?" Someday. He put his hand on her shoulder, gentle, when the words don't hurt so much. The moon climbed higher, turning the desert silver and strange. And in that light, the broken homestead looked like possibility. Like maybe two lost people could build something from nothing but will and time, and the kind of love that grows not from blood but from choosing to stay. Morning would come soon, and with it work. There were walls to mend, a well to clear, a life to build from the ground up. It wouldn't be easy, but standing there with Ruby, with the ring planted like hope in unforgiving ground, Silas thought maybe easy wasn't what mattered. Maybe what mattered was having something worth the trying, someone worth the staying for.